What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court on a beautiful October Wednesday. I am Sean Murphy, joined by the Scott Burrell to my Michael Jordan, Troy Sergey. Troy, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Sean. Doing pretty good.
I loved how insulted you looked by that.
I thought you were going to first say Scott Skiles, and I was like, Scott Skiles to Michael Jordan.
I went with Scott Burrell.
All right, fair enough. But Sean, what's going on next week?
The NBA season starts next week, Troy.
Woo!
I thought you were winding up for a way bigger move than that. So like I was thrown off because you were just like you were doing the full wind up and it was just like yay.
How about I dab on it? How about that?
No,
okay with that?
No, that was worse.
That was worse. All right.
Hey, that's okay though, Troy. Hey, I like where your energy's at.
A for effort.
Exactly. So Troy, I have been watching so much basketball, an unhealthy amount. Once I found out about the feature on League Pass where so essentially there's a feature on League Pass, and apparently this has just been a thing and I'm just new to it, and I'm just living in a bubble, but it gives you a possession recap, essentially it's called. And so it's a condensed version of the game. You get to watch every single possession. So like makes, misses, you get to see pretty much how their offense runs. You get a general idea of what's going on, and you can watch an entire game in 40 minutes. And so
awesome. Yeah.
I've been able to see almost every game because of it. I mean, obviously, like I still tune in. I still try to tune in live for like certain games. Like I've been watching, like I watched like the first quarter of the Celtics Raptors preseason game the other night. I watched a quarter of the Heat and the Hornets. I watched a lot of the Bulls. That team has been insanely fun.
Me too. Hopefully we can talk just briefly on that, because that was a game I watched too.
Absolutely. Let's do that right now. So I actually put out a video yesterday. It's up on this channel, so be sure to check it out. Talking about the highs and lows of the preseason for me, and the Bulls have been my highest of high. They have just been so fun to watch. So they are probably going to be the contender for the League Pass Team of the Year, because wow, they are fun. What have you noticed, Troy? Like what are your impressions of the Bulls? What do you think of them now that you've seen them in action? Is I think a good way to ask it.
2 words: Lonzo Ball.
Lonzo Ball, man.
He's coming out. He is coming out in Chicago.
Troy, I know it's just the preseason, so I want to preface what I'm about to say with that, okay? If he keeps playing like this, he's winning Most Improved Player.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the exact same thing.
If he keeps playing like this, MIP 100%. And it just, I don't know about you, Troy, but I was really pissed with how he was handled in New Orleans, because I felt like it felt like the first year when he was with Alvin Gentry, they put the keys in his hands and he was able to run the offense. And when Zion was healthy, like they actually played insanely well together. And then this past year, Stan Van Gundy, just for whatever reason, doesn't like Lonzo, and so put him in a reduced role. Chicago put the keys in his hands, and it has been glorious to watch.
Right, and I guess I kind of thought, DeRozan would be, I guess, the number one option, and he still could be. He very well still could be. But I see a potential of Alonzo being a number one option for that team.
Right. Well, as far as, I mean, Zach LaVine's the number one.
Oh, right.
Zach LaVine's the number one option. But like, as far as like the primary ball handler,
that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah. Primary ball handler. I definitely think, but like the thing that's kind of special about that team is you have 3 guys on the court that all could do it. Mm-hmm. And then you have Vucevic, who can also do some playmaking from the perimeter too.
Who can kind of do it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
And that is a good team, Sean. It is going to be fun.
What do you think? So like, is there anything that what were the things that stood out to you the most in particular? Of things you liked, what stuck out was there anything that you had question marks about?
Not necessarily. I think their spacing was actually really impressive. I liked how they spaced the floor, and then their passing was good, and they kind of played very much a pass first kind of offense that I thought, at least, and that was fun to watch, especially when you got guys on the wings that can shoot it. That was something that I think in this modern league, you need that to compete. And I saw that a lot from Chicago, a little bit of preseason that I've watched. And I guess, I don't know. I don't know if it's a red flag, but like you said, when you have a team like that, it's kind of like a JV version of Brooklyn, right? Or a freshman version of Brooklyn, where you have guys like last year's team with Kyrie, Harden, and Durant, where it's like, all can score, all can be beyond number one options. But sometimes I think with those guys' personality, especially where they're coming from, Vucevic from Orlando and Ball from Lakers and Pelicans, and then DeRozan from a Raptors and Spurs type of team where, they kind of were the little bit of face of the franchise kind of thing. So I think meshing them all together might be a little bit difficult, at least the beginning of the season. But I guess, all three guys are kind of at a point in their careers where it's like, well, how are we going to be discussed 10, 15 years down the road after we retire? Right. I mean, I think all of them are in that stage of like, they're all good players, but none of them have done anything to put them over the hump of being Hall of Famer.
Right. Yeah, I think to your point, in my opinion, I think this team can go as far as Zach LaVine takes them, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, because you do have guys in this team that individually have all shown a certain level of skill, but have never quite achieved what we thought that they could.
Exactly.
I think the amazing thing about guys like Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan in particular is they are guys that are really good, like just high skill players. And it is amazing how much they can do that is directly how much their game translates to winning basketball, yet how little their teams win. You know what I mean? Because it's not like they're just padding the stats. Like they're like, if you watch Vucevic and you watch DeRozan play, like you can point out the things that they do positively for their team, right? And so I think now in a situation where DeMar DeRozan has a lot to prove, because we really stopped talking about the San Antonio Spurs when he went there. And we really, Nikola Vucevic has a lot to prove because he's been an all-star, but at the same time, people don't even really know what his game is, right? They don't know that he's been a top 5 big in this league for years, And then you have Lonzo, who I think has so much he has so much potential and has gotten clowned on so hard.
So much to prove, right?
And a lot to prove in that sense. But then you look at Zach LaVine, who's like, I'm a superstar. I'm a top 5 guy in this league. I'm sure he fully believes that, but he just never had the supporting cast. So now, hey, Zach LaVine, you got guys around you, and Zach LaVine is special. He can put up 30 easy without sweating. So,
yes.
I think that's why I say this team can go as far as he takes them, because if he does prove to be that kind of Devin Booker kind of player that just proves that he just needed to get there, then this team could be a sleeper for the Eastern Conference Finals. This is a team that could give Philly some scares. It could give Milwaukee some scares. I don't see any team other than Brooklyn still coming out of the Eastern Conference, even with what we know as of today, which we'll get to. But I think, if Zach LaVine's that guy, this roster's awesome and this is going to be fun. If he's not that guy, then there'll be like a middle of the pack Eastern Conference team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great assessment, Sean. I couldn't agree more. And I think what impresses me about LaVine too is his athleticism, of really how he can get to the hole, how he can dish it, how he can shoot. Like he's an all around, he's kind of your perfect NBA player with his body and his skill size.
Yeah. So, like those athletes that are so skilled and are so athletic that it doesn't even look like it takes any effort.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he's one of those athletes that he exerts so much athletic energy, and he does so much, yet it looks like it doesn't even affect him. And that's the thing that blows my freaking mind. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg, ladies and gentlemen, because this is From Half Court, where each and every week Troy and I sit down and we talk all things NBA basketball. If you'd like that, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to this channel, where From Half Court has NBA content multiple days a week. You can also find this podcast audibly, so be sure to go anywhere that your heart desires for podcasts around the globe. You can follow Troy on Twitter at TroySergey44, and you can follow me at Sean Half Court. And one more thing, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow on this channel, a brand new podcast featuring myself and one of my best friends as the host, the Pizza Palace podcast, coming out Thursday. Check it out right here on this channel. Oh yeah. But with that, Troy, we got some news to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. This is the last few weeks are, kind of like that dead zone of like September, and like the very, very beginning of October is just dead and there's nothing to talk about. We do not have those issues anymore because there is a lot to talk about. Starting with KYRIE IRVING. So, news today from the Brooklyn Nets camp. Sean Marks releases a public statement saying that KYRIE IRVING will not be with the team. He will not be allowed in Nets facilities. He will not play in any games unless he can be a full-time participant, aka unless he gets the vaccine. This coming directly from Woj and a statement from Sean Marks. I'm going to pull that up right now. But Troy, what was your gut reaction after you saw that?
Didn't surprise me, but it really did not surprise me, Sean. I think KYRIE has taken the stance, leading up to this point, that he will not get the vaccine, period. And, we talked about last time, maybe when these guys see a cut in their paycheck or this and that. And in my head, I was thinking, maybe the other guys, but not KYRIE IRVING, right? Mm-hmm. I just think he's such a different stubborn beast compared to the other guys. And, he's firm with this. And yes, I was a little bit shocked in Brooklyn's choice, but what I was not shocked about was that KYRIE IRVING still withstood his ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to the seriousness on one of the virus, of how many people across the country and world have died because of this virus. And living in the United States too, we have the vaccine, and some other countries have a vaccine, but it's not as effective as the Pfizer and Moderna that we have here in the United States. So unfortunately, especially living in a big city, it's something that needs to get done. It's something that the league has been stressing. The league has not stopped stressing, and he's had all the time in the world to get this shot. When the rest of the world is begging for it.
Well, and here's the thing.
Yeah.
Because, I think it's important to remember that, to your point, first of all, the NBA is not mandating that its players get vaccinated. They are putting heavy incentives and things about quality of life and what you can and can't do if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. But this has been something that was put in place by the city of New York, was these mandates. And so, Brooklyn, they were in a situation where they had one of their players, right, where they have 41 home games a year, 41 away games.
Mm-hmm.
If you are trying to win an NBA championship and one of your best players is making the decision, because he does have a choice in the matter.
Mm-hmm.
He very much does. You know, he can choose to get the vaccine and play this season and be there. But he is actively deciding not to. And I also was doing some reading. I do have that statement from Sean Marks. I'll share that real quick. So Sean Marks was quoted by saying, Kyrie has made it clear he has a choice in this matter. And he says, Sean Marks does say it's his right to do that, but it's in the organization's best interest to take this decision. Sean Marks also said, quote, the hope is that we'll have Kyrie back. We'll welcome him back with open arms under different circumstances. And a lot of the reporting also made it sound like James Harden and Kevin Durant were involved in the decision. They were part of the discussion of what to do going forward. So it says something that this happened. And there's even Stephen A was suggesting things like Kevin Durant at this point would be okay with Kyrie Irving getting traded. He didn't officially come on the record and say that, but he did heavily insinuate things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But according to The Athletic, this is the insight of why Kyrie Irving is not choosing to get the vaccine. So this is directly from The Athletic. I want to share this, and this isn't to get political, but this is just what his reason is. And I think that's important to acknowledge. Those reports, the article from The Athletic reads, quote, multiple sources with direct knowledge of Irving's decision have told The Athletic that Irving is not anti-vaccine and that his stance is that he is upset that people are losing their jobs due to vaccine mandates. It's a stance that Irving has explained to close teammates. To him, this is about a grander fight than the one on the court, and Irving is challenging a perceived control of society and people's livelihood, according to sources with knowledge of Irving's mindset. It is a decision that he believes he is capable to make given his current life dynamics. Kyrie wants to be a voice for the voiceless, one source said. And so reading that, you know, it sounds way more sane than what the Rolling Stones article made him sound, because golly, that made him not sound so good. So like this one at least reads better, but my issue with it, because I just made a quote to it, I was like, okay, so let's say this is Kyrie Irving's stance, right? First of all, why is he not saying anything publicly about the issue if he has an agenda behind this decision?
That's big.
If this is something that he truly believes in deeply, that there are people that are victims for losing their jobs due to people getting forced to get the vaccine, right? But the problem is that those people are making a choice because employers have the right to mandate the vaccine. And if it affects their bottom line, which it affects almost every single employer's bottom line, to whether or not they're vaccinated due to health guidelines, they have the right to choose. And guess what? Certain employers have those mandates, and you as an employee have a choice. Do you comply with the mandate or do you not? If you accept, you keep your employment. If you decline, you are choosing to leave. That is not you getting fired. That is you quitting because you are deciding to not get the vaccine. So I understand if Kyrie wants to have a conversation about what should and shouldn't be mandated. That's a different conversation. But here's the problem. He's not even looking to have a conversation, because if he truly was, he wouldn't just do that in the background and not have anything to say about it. That's the thing that doesn't make sense to me. And this is what will always confuse me about Kyrie Irving, is that he always has a heart or always has a purpose behind what he does, but the way that he handles it publicly is never productive to his cause. And that is something that is just going to boggle my mind every single day.
Yeah. And Sean, too, another thing I saw, I guess people close to the organization have said that, there has been talks inside Kyrie Irving's circle about potentially retiring. Did you hear that too?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. I honestly, that's been my gut feeling for a while now. Is Kyrie? He just seems like he's so close to retirement. Like from a physical standpoint, he could play for another 12, 13 years.
You say?
I think physically he could play for a while now if he wanted to. In my opinion, if he wanted to.
I would say probably maybe 9, but
he's 26.
Yeah.
He's like mid-20s. He's and here's the thing, like, yeah, he's had injuries, but he hasn't had any truly devastating injuries. And the way that he plays the game, how efficient he is, how much he does, he could play till he's 40.
I don't think Kyrie's 26. I think he's 27 or 28.
He's 29. So 29. I will correct. Yeah. He is 29. However, I stand by my statement. But anyway,
it would be a tragedy if we will never see Kyrie Irving on a basketball court again. That will be a tragedy.
He to me, he just never has seemed truly invested in the game. The game is not primary to Kyrie, and that's okay. If it's not your priority, that is perfectly fine. However, you also owe it to your teammates that if you are in that kind of situation, that is, you are making a choice to not commit to your teammates and to violate your contract with the Nets. That's, at the end of the day, if he is questioning whether or not he's truly dedicated to being a full-time basketball player, then that's a decision he has to make, and all good on him. But to me, this is just the fact that we could see the end of a career, or the end of a run that we never really even got in Brooklyn, would just be so infuriating. So,
and let's talk quick. Yeah. What does this do to a current Brooklyn Nets team of not having Kyrie Irving on the court anymore?
Do you want my honest opinion, or do you want my analyst opinion?
Both.
All right.
I know your honest opinion.
My honest opinion is that it's addition by subtraction. I think it frees them up a lot more. I think my honest opinion is the more you can have the ball in the hands of James Harden than Kyrie Irving, I think the better from a schematic standpoint, because I think James Harden is a more talented playmaker as far as distributing the ball to his teammates, and I think sometimes Kyrie can overshoot. So I think they'll be fine in that standpoint. And but I wonder how this would work as far as salary cap, because then does that mean that would open that slot to potentially sign players in free agency or the buyout market in the middle of the season? Does that mean that they can make trades and possibly work their way up and getting some more decent role players? To me, that's where my head goes. So I think ultimately they're still my championship favorites, because I think Kevin Durant and James Harden are 2 of the 3 best players in the world. But it definitely, you do have to acknowledge that anytime you lose a player that talented, that hurts, because let's be honest, if Kyrie Irving was healthy, the Milwaukee Bucks would not be champions. That's just fact.
That is a fact.
So, what about you, Troy? What do you think?
Yeah, I think as far as that question of my honest opinion of what does this do, I think long term it may just set them up for a better player to run the point. But I think my answer is the team will go as far as Kevin Durant will take them. Right? It's that simple, just like the Chicago thing.
And I think that was the case even with Kyrie Irving on the roster, in my opinion.
Yeah. I guess I don't really know how much they lose. I say maybe 3 games tops.
I mean, I mean, I will say this: it puts more pressure on Kevin Durant and James Harden.
But I think they're ready for the pressure.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the pressure in the playoffs. Obviously, what I'm saying is it's really more so about the workload. It just adds on more wear and tear. Like you're going to be playing more minutes. You're going to be asked to do more on the offensive end. Like, yes, your stats will benefit. However, will your health maintain when the playoff time comes around?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's be honest, they both were out for significant periods of time last past season. And Kevin Durant, he always has health as a question mark. When he is healthy, he wins. When he's not, it's kind of hard to. So
right. Another thing too, just something that quickly popped in my head was, if Kyrie retires from the NBA, do you see him playing overseas?
No.
Okay.
If anything, I could see him retiring for like a year or two and coming back eventually too. Because that's the thing with Kyrie is if whatever decision he makes, he changes his mind the next day. Right. So, I could see him coming back to the game someday, but also, I think, if Kyrie does stay retired or if Kyrie does retire, I think he's going to try to become a political activist. Yeah. So that's where I see him going, because that's where it seems like a lot of his interests is on these societal issues. So, if that's really what his stances are, then I think it's time, in that case, if he wants to put some action behind his words, then go do it. Otherwise, we'll see what happens. So, yeah. So that I don't know if there's much else to say beyond that. I think you and I are both hoping he gets the vaccine and that he's on the court as soon as possible, because it really isn't. To me, it just isn't worth sacrificing all of that. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
especially knowing that, any misconceptions of the vaccine that this is based on are not true. And so it just makes it frustrating in that light. All right, next up on topics of conversation, Ben Simmons. Week 2 of Simmons Watch here on From Half Court comes an update that seemed like the only natural next step other than getting traded. However, the way that this all went down is the weirdest thing I've heard in the game of basketball in quite some time. So Troy, do you know everything about this story?
I guess I don't.
Do you know about how he showed up and they didn't even know?
I did not hear that.
Okay, Troy, this story is incredible. So I'm going to tell you and I'm going to tell everybody. So Ben Simmons, right? Him and his camp, as it's all getting reported yesterday, or on Monday, as of when this comes out, that Ben Simmons and Clutch Sports, his camp are having conversations, and it looks like they're progressing towards having Ben Simmons return to the team by the end of the week. So that was the discussion. Those are the reports, and that was what we were working off of. And the Philadelphia 76ers, that is exactly what they were expecting. So then, obviously that's a big story. Philadelphia, they're having a preseason game against Brooklyn. And all of a sudden, Elton Brand gets a text saying Ben Simmons is outside the team facility. He's here to get a COVID test. And so Ben Simmons, out of the blue, without talking to anybody, hasn't talked to anybody in the organization for 3 months, just shows up on the night that his team is having a preseason game that he is actively not there for, to get his preliminary COVID test to come and join the team, just shows up and doesn't even say a word to anybody. The general manager, Elton Brand, found out through a text message. Isn't that just insane?
Yeah.
Like, your franchise player, And I was I actually just because I recorded my podcast with Robert before this, and I kind of thought about this analogy that you'll kind of hear here first, I guess, where it's kind of like, you know, from the Sixers side, it must just be puzzling because it's like, let me get this straight. You're the one that blew the series for us. You're the one that wouldn't take the layup. You're the one that wouldn't improve your game and get better at jump shooting. You're the one that is the problem as to why we're not winning. And we have you under contract for 4 more years at $30 million, and you're the one that's unhappy? And now you just show up completely out of the blue, right at our front door. Like, what in the world, Troy? What do you...
Yeah, that's so weird. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, he was in LA for a while, right? Just like,
yeah,
enjoying his summer and doing whatever Ben Simmons does in the summer.
Yeah.
And the fact that he came to Philly from LA just to get a COVID test and meet with the team, practice with the team.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing we don't know.
And we straight up don't know how, where, what, who, why.
Right. Well, so I mean, we know why. It's because he was getting fined $340,000 a day for not showing up, which what they did is, apparently the way that his contract works is he gets paid essentially the first half or like the first third of his salary at like the first day of training camp. And so like they essentially he was supposed to get paid like $8.5 million. And so they took that and they put it in what's called like an escrow account. So like they just put it on the side. And apparently instead of just like doing a fine like they like traditionally would, they took the money that they owed him, put it in this account, and we're just taking that money out of that $8.5 million. So it was like he was just losing so much of that contract money that he just wouldn't be able to get back otherwise. So like they kind of played it brilliantly. Like I honestly, like, props to Daryl Morey for like sticking to his guns, calling them on their bluff, because, you know, clearly this thing that like, oh, he ain't showing up no matter what. I mean, hey, here he is.
Yeah.
So, you know, as far as what's next, Troy, a gut reaction. Do you think there's a chance he even plays another game in a Philly uniform?
Yeah, we've had this discussion on the podcast, and I guess our answer before was no. And I guess the answer now is probably not. I still think, if anything, Sean, this makes such a weird situation that, like, why would they want... To me, it's too weird to put him in a Sixers uniform again, right? And that's my opinion. Right. It's too weird. It's too weird to put this behind them and just say, all right, well, if Ben Simmons wants to put on the uniform now, I guess we'll let him. Like, I feel like it's already too much damage in all the situation. It's already too much weirdness, too much selfishness, too much everything that just is stupid. Go ahead.
But the problem is, and the conundrum in all of this, is the last thing, the thing that both sides want is to be separated, right?
Yeah.
As it seems. Philly insists that they want him. They insist that he's a part of their future. They're trying to convince him to come back. But in reality, they're doing what their only move is, and it's showing that, Ben, this is your only move too, that the only way that we separate is by working together. Because the only way Ben Simmons is getting out of Philly at this point is if he improves his trade value and Philly gets something that they're okay with. Because a contract is a two-way street. Like, yeah, you get paid all this money, but on the other hand, Philly paid you because and they own the rights to Ben Simmons as an NBA player for the next 4 years. So at this point, the only thing that would really make sense on Philly's side is to try to get Ben Simmons to come back, to play up to the All-Star break around the trade deadline, hope that there's a disgruntled star and a team looks at Ben Simmons and go, okay, you know what? He's having a good season. His value's up. Let's trade. Why not? Like the Wizards. Like, let's say Bradley Beal decides he's never going to sign he's not going to sign with them over the offseason, right?
Yeah.
Like that could be a situation where they go, hey, let's pull the trigger. But that doesn't happen with Ben Simmons staying at home. But yet again, you're in this situation where do you really want to throw him in that locker room when they all know that he doesn't want to be there? And also
and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and with Joel Embiid, like how do you reintroduce Ben into that locker room? Especially when he told them to not come to LA.
And that right there is why I don't think there is an answer to that question, Sean. And another thing too, what you talked about a GM of another team looking at Ben Simmons in a quote unquote halfway through the year kind of scenario of how he's been playing, say he plays this year. But what I have to say about that is you've had 4 years, like you've had 4 years to look at Ben Simmons, right? Like there's nothing that any GM doesn't know already about Ben Simmons that would have the slightest interest. So in my opinion, if I'm Philly, if I'm honest to God, Philly, Sean, I take a cheap end deal.
But
if I'm Philly, I want to move as quick as possible away from this scenario.
Right.
I trade Ben Simmons for whatever is available.
Right. But here's the problem. The other side of it is, yes, that might be the best case scenario from a culture standpoint long term. But how about a winning standpoint? Because if you trade him for the cheap end, you are committing to not only wasting Ben Simmons on the 76ers, you're doing the same thing with Joel Embiid, because then at that point, you're relying on a free agent signing and coming to Philadelphia, when Philadelphia has historically not exactly been a free agent destination. Like, yeah, sure, you could in theory get a guy to come and sign and say, hey, I want to play with Joel Embiid, but that's great. That historically hasn't really happened in Philadelphia. The only way that they've gotten these guys is through the draft or through a trade. So, and the other piece of it too is if I'm Daryl Morey, if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, here's the other piece of it. You want to show these teams how good you are, and you like to ultimately get your pick of where you want to go. Hey, Ben Simmons, you said you've been working on your jump shot this offseason. Hey, now you get to prove it to these other organizations. Hey, like apparently he's really worked this offseason on this thing. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying that this is another way to call him on his bluff and to actually come and show it. And the only way that he can do that, and the only way to get his value up, and the only way he's going to get out of here if he truly wants to, is if you suit up and play. So I don't think...
Sean, one more thing about that is that Philly put themselves in this situation.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like you said, like kissing Ben Simmons goodbye for a bag of chips, and then essentially setting yourself up for Joel Embiid to do the same thing. I have no sympathy for that.
Oh, I don't have any sympathy either. I'm just saying this is like their final play to even salvage something. That's what I'm saying. This is the only right. This isn't what I think is the right move. This isn't what I think is going to happen. This is what they have to be thinking, or this is probably what they're pursuing. This is us
playing all the cards.
Yeah, 100%. This is like you're on your final hand of poker. You're all in. Through 4 cards, you can tell that you're going to lose the matchup. You have a 1% chance of beating the other guy. You're hoping for that magic card that will somehow give you a full house. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, you bring them in because they haven't talked in 3 months. So at this point, they have the first step is they got to talk, and they got to actually listen to each other and see where they're at, because at that point they can have a conversation and Philly can say, okay, yep. And on second thought, let's go ahead and make a trade. Let's make a reasonable deal. Sacramento, you have some young assets. Let's move on. Let's salvage this. However, it's going to depend on what those conversations say, because, at a certain point, the 76ers do have the say here. They do have the leverage of, paying him. But also, you got to do what's best for your team. And it probably at this point, the best for the team is not having him in the locker room, because if he's going to, I would imagine that those teammates that were told not to come to Los Angeles are probably not going to want to welcome him back in with open arms in the locker room. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just me.
And I got one more thing to add to the Philly thing, away from Ben Simmons, but still we're dealing with Philly, is this past week, I don't know if you heard, Sean, but Allen Iverson came out and said he doesn't understand and is very hurt that over the past 5-10 years, Philadelphia has never offered him a position on the team in any capacity.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that, Sean?
So, as a Detroit sports fan, it triggers me in a way, because it reminds me very much of the situation with the Detroit Lions with Calvin Johnson. To me, I would say Allen Iverson is the best thing to happen to Philadelphia basketball since Julius Erving played.
100%.
And the amount that he did for that franchise, even if they never won a championship, the finals run that they
won
got
a finals
to,
game. Yeah.
They got to a finals. He broke so many records on that team. He did so much, and he is so synonymous with the city of Philadelphia and the culture of the 76ers that, as someone that is a fan of sports and a fan of these athletes, I agree in the sense that it is mind-boggling that Allen Iverson isn't part of the organization, because imagine from the player's standpoint how great it would be to know that you can have a guy like Allen Iverson to talk to. I mean, heck, Ben Wallace, he just got brought on in an organizational spot with the Pistons. I mean, the San Antonio Spurs, they just did the same thing with Manu Ginobili, So if I'm Allen Iverson, I'm looking at these franchises that get it, because clearly Troy Weaver gets it. Clearly the guys in the Pistons front office get it, of saying, okay, how do we establish this culture? By bringing in these guys that are that culture. And so if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm like, I'm looking for anything. Like, whatever you want, AI.
I mean, they already brought in Elton Brand.
Yeah. You brought in Elton Brand. Why not bring in Allen Iverson? What the heck?
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I guess my only thing is, throughout his career and even post-career, Allen Iverson has kind of been seen as a liability in some fashions.
Yeah.
The cultural icon, but also the unpredictable bombshell.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't have to be a full-time spot. It could even be like what Drake is, where he's the team ambassador. You know what I mean? Like, he can just, he can be a public face that you have at home games. He can be, he can just be someone that you bring in as an advisor for free agency.
Correct. Yeah. Something, or a scout.
Yeah. Like, literally. Well, I mean, I don't know. Scouts, that is a very,
it's better than nothing, Sean.
Okay. But the last thing you want out of a scout, if you're talking bombshell, unpredictable, like, being a scout is an objectively nerdy job. Like, you have to love watching random ass basketball and like just
You'd be a good scout, Sean.
I mean, I appreciate that. I don't know, man. I think I have a good eye for talent, but like, it is a different level, because like, not only is it the eyes, but like, you have to look at the statistics and all that stuff. But Allen Iverson as a scout, I'm just picturing him going to Turkey. Like, yeah, hey, I'm Allen Iverson. I'm here to watch Basmov Cheklov play so we could draft him the second round. Like, that it's just a funny image to me. But, But yeah, so to me, and by the way, if Sheila Ford Kemp is listening to this podcast, just pay Calvin Johnson $1 million and say we're sorry. You owe him $1 million. Pay him $1 million. Damn it. But anyway, that's a conversation for a different podcast.
Yeah, quoting Sean Murphy, it's what would you say? It's a cold day and HE double hockey sticks if Troy and I have to make an NFL podcast, right?
Oh my gosh, dude. By the way, John Gruden, crazy human being. But that's a wow. Sorry, I'm eating a Pop-Tart right now. I totally shouldn't be. Anyway, next part, Troy. You know what time it is, my guy?
Time to go to South Dakota and check out Mount Rushmore.
Heck yeah, man. We are going to Mount Rushmore with Troy. And this time, we're actually going on Mount Rushmore. What are we doing today, Troy?
So today, Sean, we're going to be doing a very interesting thing. Back to Mount Rushmores. We did a 5-part legacy series that I thought went extremely well, wouldn't you say? Of rehashing some old names that we might have forgot of, but of course, we never actually forgot because they live in our hearts. Those types of players that we talked about. So today, we're going to be back to Mount Rushmore after a 5-week break. And today, we are going to be doing a Mount Rushmore of top international players. But wait, Sean, there's a 2-part catch. The first catch is they have to be retired.
Okay.
AKA not currently in the NBA.
So not Giannis is what you're saying.
Not Giannis or Luka?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not Giannis or Luka.
Mm-hmm.
Second catch, which will really throw us for a loop, is they could not have played college basketball at an American university. So that scratches Hakeem Olajuwon off the list, and that scratches Steve Nash off the list. So strictly international players who were drafted as international players, not international players that played college basketball.
Makes sense to me.
So opening up on our list of top international players, the point guard, don't quote me on this, 5-time NBA champion from France, Tony Parker.
4-time NBA champion, Tony Parker.
Yes, because he got drafted in 2000, right? 2001. So he wasn't on that 99 team. Okay,
correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. 4-time NBA champion.
Hey,
Tony
still
Parker.
still 4 times. I suppose that's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, listen, he's Mount Rushmore 100%. I mean, you know, he was never the best player on his team, but he was never appreciated for what he brought to the game because he just was. Correct. People underrate how skilled
crafty
the guy. Oh my gosh, just the man was an artist with the basketball, just driving to the rim, everything that he could do, unreal. Yeah, absolutely on the Mount Rushmore.
And it's amazing that you're right. Never the best player on his team, but he will be a Hall of Famer one day. Like that's 100%. That's no 99. That's 100%. Tony Parker will be in the Hall of Fame of basketball one day.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's a matter
because of his craftiness, because of his championship, and because of the stats that he was able to put up. And he was always a consistent guy too. Always consistent. Really, if you play for the San Antonio Spurs, you better be consistent. But he was consistent, and he could get to the hole. You know, I think of even later on in his career within both finals against the Heat, in 2014 and 13, he put on a show each and every night. And that was later in his career too. And Tim Duncan, I guess you could say, did the same thing. He will not be on this list, even though he's from the Dominican Republic. He played college basketball at Wake Forest. So no Tim Duncan, spoiler alert. But
no Dikembe Mutombo either. That was going to be my next pick. Yeah.
Where did he play college?
Georgetown.
Okay, that's right. So yeah, Tony Parker get to the rim. He could shoot the ball too. Really underrated shooter, I think, especially from the mid range. And he could even stroke a little bit down the 3-point line. And I know on Twitter you kind of introduced me to this. I see it every once in a while of a player that played on a random team towards the end of his career, and then you say that name legend. We did it last week with Trevor Ariza, Pistons legend, right? Tracy McGrady, Pistons legend.
DeAndre Jordan, Pistons legend. Yeah.
Hakeem Olajuwon, Raptors legend. Tony Parker, Charlotte Hornets legend.
Hey, we get a new one now. We get both Raptors legend Stanley Johnson, and now we get Chicago Bulls legend Stanley Johnson.
I don't like that. I don't like that. But I especially don't like Charlotte Hornets legend.
That was just so hard to watch.
Because that man is a San Antonio Spur to the day he dies. And even as a Pistons fan, like, it's so cool now, because I was so heartbroken when Richard Hamilton went to the Chicago Bulls. Mm-hmm. And you were so heartbroken. This is before I kind of watched basketball, but you were so heartbroken when Ben Wallace became a Chicago Bull. And I had to grow up watching Ben Wallace as a Cleveland Cavalier.
That one hurt even more than the Bulls, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That one felt like he went to the dark side.
So I can imagine but now as a Pistons fan, 10 years after the fact of all that shenanigans, like, these guys are Pistons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
100%.
It's like I was so salty and jealous at the time that these guys were putting on uniforms that they should never put on. But in their heart, they were always Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I couldn't see as a 12-year-old, but I can 100% see now.
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, there are, it's kind of like how Pau Gasol, he might have played other places in his career. He might have started his career in Memphis. He's always going to be a Laker.
Right, absolutely.
There are just certain guys that, once you have been part of this franchise, like, Grant Hill is always going to be synonymous with the Pistons. He might have played in
even
Orlando.
though he was a Magic and a Sun.
Yeah. Like, even though Shaq, he played for 5 different teams in his career. He's a Laker.
And won 2 championships with 2 different teams.
Yeah. And the Spurs, they were a team that I hated growing up too. And so, but now as an adult, I admire and respect so much about the Spurs, because they really remind me of the Pistons. It was all an effort together. And I would argue the next spot on Mount Rushmore, I'm not sure how you were planning on going about this of I'm not sure if you had a list or if we were creating the list. Because
I have a list in the back of my head.
Yeah, you have a list in the back of your head. So we were creating this together.
Yeah,
okay,
and I think our number 2 is going to be the same if we're on this path.
Yeah, because the next person.
Let's say it on 3. Let's say it on 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Manu Ginobili.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page, Sean. We didn't have to rehearse that or anything.
No. That's just a hard name to say in unison. So it's I was like, Manu Ginobili. Yeah.
We formerly had Manu Ginobili on our other Mount Rushmore of left-handed shooters or left-handed players. And now he's back. Manu Ginobili, another guy, Argentina, second-round pick in one of the drafts in the late 90s, I think, 98 maybe, 99, somewhere around there. So a late second-round pick from the great country of Argentina. He comes in the league and becomes, again, not the best player on that Spurs team, but pretty darn close. As a guy who, again, 100% will be in the Hall of Fame. And he really torched us that 05 series against Pistons. I was watching some highlights, especially even like Game 6, which we won, but even Game 6 and Game 7, he hit some good shots. And really, he was a big piece of that 2005 NBA Finals for the Spurs, and even all the other finals that they won too with Manu. So Manu's a guy who's a scorer, so underrated scorer.
I was just gonna say, if you were to put a list of the most underrated players of the past 20 years, I think Manu Ginobili's the top of the list. I think he, first of all, if he was the number 1 option on a team, he could have easily averaged 25 a night. He was a great shooter. He was a solid slasher. The things that Manu Ginobili did that made the Spurs such a dangerous team. I mean, the guy, I mean, he would start, he would come off the bench. He literally did whatever that team needed him to do. And he never had an ego, never got in the way. Like he was just a winner. And how he was a great international player too, in the sense of representing Argentina and all the battles that we would have against him in Argentina. He was like one of those international players that I know. I was like, crap, we have to play Manu Ginobili, So everything about Manu Ginobili, like he's just a Mount Rushmore type guy for a lot of reasons. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer as well. I think that Spurs dynasty, or that Spurs team in general, is just going to be a team that, like, we're never going to see that again, like in the NBA, or at least not for a long time, where you just have guys that stick together. They're kind of the quiet stars. They're always in the mix. They're always in the Western Conference Finals picture. Like they had such a run in the West.
And they had everything together too. And I want to say even that 2013 and 14 finals runs that they had, they kind of came out of the blue, but like none of us were shocked either. Right? And that they were playing the Heat in the finals and LeBron, right? Like Manu Ginobili, I remember the day he retired and it was like, wow, today's actually a sad day for the NBA, right? Yep. Like it's genuinely a sad day.
That was one of those. That was one of those moments where it felt like the world stops.
Yeah, when Manu Ginobili retired, absolutely, I fully agree. And yeah, a good defender too, an underrated defender. And I honestly, Sean, I would do a Mount Rushmore now of underrated players in the past 20 years. But guess what? If we did this past week of international, and we have Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili on our lists, we can't just do another Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, because they're both going to be on the list.
Are on the list too, right? So it'd be pointless to do that. So, yes, two of the absolute most underrated players, same team.
If you think about it, this is almost kind of what an international list is too, because
that's true, Sean.
Because for a long time, especially it was a stigma coming into the league if you were international, especially with the Darko Milicic thing. It's like, you're European and you have a last name that's hard to pronounce. You're either a good 3-point shooter or irrelevant, and it's like that's not true. But yeah, definitely. Definitely for sure.
I like that you made that point because that was good. So so third on my list. Okay, so fourth.
So there's only
probably the obvious one.
Yeah, I have two. I have two more in my head that I can think of, and I would be shocked if these two players are not on this list. So I would love.
I have one for sure that I'm throwing hands. I'm driving to Grand Rapids to beat you up if this guy's not on our list.
I've avoided saying his name because I wanted you to have the opportunity.
Okay, so my heart's happy.
Let's just get that one out of the way.
Okay. Can I say it, Sean?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
From the great land of Germany, number 41.
Yep.
From the Dallas Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki.
Other than Hakeem Olajuwon, the greatest international player of all time.
Yes, I fully agree. And I love Dirk. Like, he's the only player, Sean, that when he had a good game or even just scored against our Detroit Pistons, I was fine with it. He's the only player that I sincerely wished had a good game against us, because it was just an opportunity to watch Dirk play. Like, he was my
assassin.
favorite player of the past 20 years, by far. Everyone from fifth grade, ever since I played basketball in fifth grade, people compared him to me, or me to him. I'm sorry. All the way
compared him to, wow, Dirk Nowitzki's like a Troy Sergey.
Up to when I was in 12th grade.
Yeah.
I was Dirk, and when people saw a 8th grade game, a freshman game, a JV game, a varsity game, they saw me and said Dirk, and I always took pride in that because of how much I love Dirk myself, and for a fan or a parent to watch little me play and see my favorite player and not know that it's my favorite player, but still tell me that. Like it was awesome. So like Dirk is just, oh my gosh, I love Dirk. I got to see him play my senior year of high school against the Pistons at the Palace. It was so cool. But he's a guy, 2011 NBA Finals MVP, 2011 champion, the 2000.
Wish he would have won more. Wish he would have won more than one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the finals against the Heat in 2006, the comeback, 2006, where Dwayne Wade has his coming out party, and they had the comeback to win the finals.
Right. And he won the MVP that year, I believe, too.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, one of the greatest tragedies of Dirk's career was the fact that they never adequately got enough talent around him to get it done, because there were so many years, and people forget, but like the Mavericks were number one in the Western Conference for quite a bit.
Yeah, they were.
And they would often make it to the Western Conference Finals. They would always, have really good series against the Lakers or the Spurs. Whenever Dirk would run in with Steve Nash, at one point he was teammates with Steve Nash. How it was just so special, and people, a lot of it was just made about what the Heat did wrong in 2013. When the Mavericks won the title,
2011.
Yeah, 2011. My apologies. When the Mavericks won the title in 2011, a lot of people made it about what the Heat did wrong,
right?
But they didn't focus on how sensational Dirk played, how great the Mavericks did, and he was just one of those guys where he couldn't retire without winning a ring. He couldn't.
Right. There's no doubt, Sean. And I was hoping when he did retire that 2007 year, when they were the number one seed, they only lost 16 games all year, and they got bounced by the Baron Davis Warriors in the first round.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anyone talk about that series since. So I'm glad that wasn't a legacy of Dirk, really.
I mean, people talk about that series, but they talk about it's really more so the triumph of the Warriors. You know what I mean?
Than the downfall of the Mavericks.
Yeah, because it's not Dirk's fault. You know what I mean? He didn't have the greatest series, but I mean, hey, how much he's done for Dallas? Listen, man, he top 10 player of all time as far as
fade away. Oh my gosh, I think he's 7 or 8. He caught that ball in the low block and kicked his right leg up in that fadeaway, and it was nothing but net every time. I get chills just thinking about it.
And as much as I could just talk all day about Dirk Nowitzki, I gotta know, Troy. So I have a name in my head.
I have a name too, and what I'm hoping we can do, Sean, just like we did with our Mount Rushmore shooters. Remember, I had Reggie Miller, you had Klay Thompson. I'm hoping we can say at the same time, because I think we're thinking of two different people, but we could be thinking of the same person. And let's just debate each other until we can settle, and we'll have the loser be the honorable mention. Is that fair?
Wait, that's fair, but I have a counter idea.
Okay.
What if we name who we think the other person's thinking of?
Okay.
And then we do the rest of it after that.
Okay.
All right, who do you think I'm thinking of?
You're thinking of Tony Kukoc.
Okay.
Who do you think I'm thinking of?
I thought you were thinking of Peja Stojakovic.
No.
Who are you thinking of?
Peja Stojakovic probably would be my 5th or 6th. I'm thinking of Yao Ming.
I'm thinking of Yao Ming. What? All right, yeah, okay, thank goodness, because it's Yao Ming.
From the great land of China. First pick in the 2001 NBA. No, that was Kwame Brown. 2002 NBA draft.
I was going to say, Troy, I was like, you can't have a list of the greatest international players and not include the Chinese 7'6" monster in the paint.
Yeah, Yao Ming. We were on the same page.
Listen, man, the thing about his career is it wasn't long. And his dominance didn't last long either.
Correct. Because you can't be that tall and expect to run down the court as much times as Yao Ming did. But guess what? He honestly did.
But, yeah, because that's the thing. Because here's the thing. When he did play, excuse me, when he did play and when he was healthy and when he was on the court.
Yeah, beast. Almost as unstoppable as Shaq, but not quite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
He wasn't a bust, that's for sure.
Heck no. Yeah, it's Yao Ming. I mean, everything he did for the game. I mean, the ambassador he was.
That's why he's in the Hall of Fame, is not because of his NBA career, but what he did to China. Basketball is the number one sport in China.
Yeah, talk about a legacy in China. We talked about Stephon Marbury. Yao Ming. Yeah, it is Yao Ming. He's the godfather of basketball in China. It feels like, he
right.
He didn't do a ton as far as accomplishments in the game, like statistically.
Didn't win any MVPs. No finals MVPs.
But multi-time All-Star. He got over 9,200 points in his career, 4,400 rebounds, 900 blocks. That's
a big stat right there.
Yeah. And of the 17 players who reached those touchstones through their first 8 seasons, 13 of them are or will inevitably be in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. And to think he kind of actually had a somewhat rivalry with Shaq is pretty darn cool. Because Shaq doesn't have rivals, but Yao Ming was as close of a rival to Shaq as anyone.
He was the only one that you could make a legitimate argument was as dominant. Now, granted, if they were to play in a 7-game series, my money's on Shaq because I think
Shaq in probably 5, maybe 6.
Yeah, because even though Yao Ming did have the dominance of his height, Shaq had the dominance of his will and of his motor and of his his strength. And so, to me, I'm going to take strength over height all day, every day. But
me too.
I mean, listen, man.
Look at Hashim Thabit.
Yao Ming was no scrub. Yao Ming was Look at it. Yeah, look at Hashim Thabit. Case in point. I'm surprised we had the same one on that last one.
Yeah, I'm really happy we did too, because Yao Ming needed to be on our list. And
100%.
So true.
100%.
And I think somewhat, okay, I gotta watch what I'm saying here, but somewhat of an underrated shooter, because he had a little mid-range game.
Yeah, he is an under. That was an under
7'6".
Yeah,
6 inches shorter than 8 feet tall.
That was actually something I was gonna bring up. Was unlike Shaq, he could actually score outside of the paint. He was a multi-level threat.
Definitely.
And here's the thing: how you gonna block a 7'6" mid-range jump shot? You're not. And not only was Yao Ming tall, but he was long too. Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%. He could genuinely dunk it without jumping, which is insane.
And I don't know if Yao Ming has any regrets on his career, but maybe like if you throw Yao Ming in today's game, I think he needs that mid-range even develop a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we could be talking about the Yao Ming MVP had he developed that a little better.
Yeah, I almost wonder if Yao Ming would have made the league. I think the answer is probably yes. He was skilled, but it wasn't as much of a shoe-in. It wouldn't be as much of a shoe-in now as it was back in the day. You know what I mean?
Oh, right. Consensus number 1 pick.
Yeah, 100%. Whereas guys like Taco Fall now are on the main Red Claws, sponsored by Dos Equis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
now he's a Cleveland Cavalier.
That is true, man. What an unfortunate soul.
But a 2nd-round pick. Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And they're the same height, aren't they? Or no, Taco's 7'5", right?
Yeah, Taco's 7'5".
Okay, so he's an inch taller than Taco.
Yep. What a scrub that Taco Fall. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it for this episode of From Half Court. You can follow Troy on Twitter at TroySergey44. You can follow me at Sean Half Court. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe.